I used to think that love was something permanent, something that stayed, no matter how stormy life got. But love, I learned, could fade quietly like a candle burning out when you're too tired to notice. It's been a year since Ethan and I divorced. Even saying that word still feels strange. Divorced. It's such a clean, final word for something that shattered me in 1,000 messy ways. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrible either. We were college sweethearts who grew into adults together. He was my best friend before he was my husband. We laughed a lot. We planned everything, from the colour of our kitchen to the names of the kids we never had, but life doesn't always respect your plans. When Ethan started his new job at a marketing firm, everything changed. He became distant, not cruel, not angry, just gone. His mind was always elsewhere. His phone always face down. His smile more polite than loving. At first I thought it was stress. I brought him dinner at his office once. The way his face froze when he saw me should have told me everything. He wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him, laughing, leaning closer than colleagues do. When I walked in, she looked at me like I was the intruder. Ethan stood up so fast his chair nearly fell over. He said her name was Clara, his new assistant. I believed him. That's what love does. It makes you believe even when you shouldn't. The cracks widened slowly after that. He started coming home late, missing our dinners, forgetting our small anniversaries. One night I waited up for him until midnight. When he finally came home, he smelled like someone else's perfume. We argued, but not loudly. That's the worst kind of fight, the quiet one. The one where both of you have already started to give up. A month later he moved out. No final blow-up, no tears. Just a soft, quiet ending. Like the sound of a door closing behind a love that used to be loud. I didn't hear from him again after the papers were signed. He didn't come to get his things, he just disappeared. For months I wandered through the ruins of our marriage. Every room in the house felt haunted. His mug on the shelf, his hoodie on the couch, the faint smell of his cologne when I opened a drawer. Grief is strange. It doesn't just come when someone dies. It comes when a version of your life dies too. But time did what it always does. It softened the sharp edges. I started going to yoga, picked up painting again, and spent weekends visiting my parents. I even smiled again, genuinely, for the first time in months. People said I looked better, lighter. I think it's because I finally stopped waiting for a text that would never come. Then one afternoon, it happened. I was walking home from the farmer's market, arms full of sunflowers and fresh bread, when I heard a voice behind me. Lena. I froze. I knew that voice. I would have known it even in a crowd of thousands. I turned around and there he was. Ethan. He looked the same and yet completely different. His hair was shorter, his face a little tired, but his eyes, those same gentle brown eyes, carried something I'd never seen before. Regret. We stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then he smiled awkwardly. Hey, you look good. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. You too. He asked if we could grab a coffee. Against my better judgment, I said yes. We sat at a cafe we used to love, the one where we'd spent countless lazy Sundays sharing croissants and laughter. But now the silence between us was heavier than ever. Finally, he sighed. I know I don't deserve to ask, but how have you been? I told him the truth. I was okay. Not great, not broken, just okay. He nodded, looking down at his hands. That's when I noticed the absence of a ring. We talked for a while, about work, about life, about nothing important. But beneath every word was an unspoken history. And then, just when I thought we were about to say goodbye, he looked at me, eyes soft but unreadable, and asked, "Do you ever think we made a mistake?" The world seemed to stop. That question, "Do you ever think we made a mistake?" hit me harder than anything he'd said in the past year. Part of me wanted to scream yes. Part of me wanted to tell him that I'd cried myself to sleep for months, that I still woke up some nights reaching for him. But the truth was, I didn't know. I looked at him, I really looked at him, the man I once loved so completely, who had once been my whole world. And I realized something. I didn't love him anymore. Not in the same way. What I felt was nostalgia, not longing. Memory, not desire. I smiled sadly. Ethan, maybe. But maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was what we needed to find who we were. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. I thought I wanted freedom, but all I found was emptiness. He told me about Clara. Yes, it had been her. They had dated after the divorce and for a few months. But apparently it fell apart quickly. She wasn't what I thought she was, he said. I thought she made me feel alive, but it was just distraction. I didn't know whether to feel angry or vindicated. He looked up and added softly, I thought I'd be happier without you. But I was wrong. I sat back, letting his words sink in. For a moment the old ache stirred, but it wasn't enough to pull me back. I'd built something new since he left, a quieter, steadier kind of peace. He asked if I was seeing someone. I wasn't, but I told him that I was open to it. He smiled sadly again, then said, You deserve someone who never makes you doubt your worth. That almost broke me. Because once upon a time I thought he was that person. We walked outside together, and as we stood at the corner he looked at me one last time. Lena, I'm sorry, I know, I said. I forgave you a long time ago. He hesitated, like he wanted to say something more, but instead he turned and walked away. This time I didn't cry. I just watched him disappear down the street, sunlight hitting his back like the last golden memory of a chapter I'd finally closed. That night, I sat by my window and thought about everything, the love we had, the pain we shared, the lessons I learned. I realized that sometimes people come into your life not to stay, but to teach you how strong you can be when they leave. Ethan's question stayed with me for weeks. Did we make a mistake? Maybe we did. But even mistakes can lead to growth, because that question didn't reopen old wounds. It confirmed that they had healed. A few months later, I met someone new, Daniel. He wasn't charming in the loud, dazzling way Ethan was. He was steady, kind, patient. He didn't fill the silence with words. He made it comfortable. When he smiled at me across the dinner table one evening, I realized something. This was what love was supposed to feel like, not fireworks. Not chaos. Just warmth that stayed. I ran into Ethan once more, months later, at a friend's wedding. He was there alone. He looked surprised to see me, and even more surprised when he saw Daniel by my side. For a second our eyes met. No bitterness, no longing. Just quiet understanding. He raised his glass slightly from across the room, a silent toast to what once was, and to what we had both become. And I smiled. Not because I missed him, but because I finally didn't. If you've ever lost someone and thought you'd never be whole again, I want you to remember this. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means forgiving, yourself and them. Love doesn't always last forever, but the lessons it leaves behind do, and sometimes, when the past knocks on your door again, it's not to stay. It's to remind you how far you've come. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like and share, because sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply living well and moving on.